And Senate Ag and Natural Resources to order. We're going to continue talking about 2302 House Bill, and seemed like we had an amendment on the state historical sites. You guys have a copy of that one close by? USDA. Chris has those. Thank you. So we would propose that under Section 1 to add the red balloon, paragraph 4, that would say the Kansas Water Authority may direct the Kansas Water Office to provide funding pursuant to Section 4 or Section 5 and amendments thereto for the improvement of water infrastructure in an unincorporated area related to and serving a national park site or state historical site if the request for the funding is made by a nonprofit organization or state agency that is willing to administer the monies and oversee the project, and the Kansas Water Authority deems such applicant capable of successfully managing the project. Upon receipt of such a request, the Kansas Water Office may award monies in any fiscal year prior to July 1 of 2028, with such awarding of monies to be made at the direction of the Kansas Water Office. I think that kind of cleans up the language, and there's a couple of 3 strikes after that where it took out unincorporated areas. And that would allow for the areas such as Nicodemus Historical Site to have potential to these funds also. That was our suggested language. How do you guys feel about that? Okay. I guess we're back to the 2 items we haven't done, or the overall level of funding. Or maybe we need conference real quick. It's okay to not continue to push sales tax to go to state general fund. If I need to twist your arm. There was another item on there about the livestock water tax going back to livestock items. We're still working on another possibility of how we might handle that. So we'd like to consider that overnight on the KLA deal. As far as the funding, where are you guys at on how many dollars per year to the Kansas Water Office?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this point, we're 35, 35, 35, 35, 35 is kind of where we're at. And with a little history, we really started out at 30, and by an amendment that this lady back here made, we went to 35. So, and I do feel like that when we compare the two, we're in the same ballpark with what we're trying to do. So that is kind of why we were late and what we was talking about.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would the Senate consider going back to the position of the amendment that you had brought in committee, Senator, to do 45 and then 60 the subsequent years?
Mr. Chairman, I would say no. That got voted down committee. I think we'd have a really hard time getting that across the floor. So I hear what you're saying, and that was kind of the first dive at that, and I found out how everybody thought about that. So.
Thank you. At least for my part, I really don't feel like 35 is sufficient. So not to be difficult, but perhaps that's something that we could think on overnight and then come back to.
I have to say that over 3 sessions of studying this in committee, and we did about 15 presentations a year ago in 22, and this year we did 22, I believe, with all the people that came before us to testify. We think this is still far short of what we would like to do here in the state of Kansas. I wish we could do a little bit better. I think we need to think about this a little bit overnight and see if there's something else we can come up if we're missing something here. But that's my thoughts.
I agree.
There we go. I've heard the comments here too, and they're all very plausible and right intention, but also sometimes there's a feeling about when you know enough is enough and what the feedback we're going to get. And we were just jubilant as can be. I was that we've got this far and we're this close. And then to trip all at once because it don't want to work very good for us, I don't think.
If I ran the world, it would be a whole different complexion here. But what we want and what's possible are not in the same ballpark. And I unfortunately feel like we have to go with what's possible. If you can get inventive, I'm all ears.
So I do hear what you're saying. I thank you, senators. And this is a very important topic, and it's a historic event, what we're doing here. And I know we're going to get there in the end, but I do think it's worth waiting. Just let us ponder it. Let us think about it. Let us exhaust every resource that we have just to try to figure out a solution, or we will, we'll come back to the table and talk again. But overnight is what we're asking for. Tomorrow morning, or as soon as we can get a conference room. It's just important. I don't want to rush this. I don't want to act in haste. I want to do everything so that when we answer to people, we can say we did everything possible that we could with what we've got right now. So,
Mr. Chairman, do we need to go over these other versions? Do we want to get that wiped out or not? They had the House version, Senate version. We kind of got hung up early in it.
I think we'll follow up on the stock watering appropriation tomorrow, but we can talk about water technical assistance funds. We think that's highly necessary for our municipals to have some assistance to go out. There's, what do we propose, $5 million in that to start with, and 15 into the construction fund. If we're limited on total funds, we've even briefly discussed possibly lowering those amounts away from the municipals to give a little bit more flexibility on the remainder of the funds to the Kansas Water Office. That has pluses and minuses to it. There's lots of give and loss on some of these things. So, go
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I remember, I think the main changes to the Water Technical Assistance Fund in the grant program were in the former changing the recipient of the excess funds. So we had indicated that we wanted it to go to State Water Plan Fund purposes, and the Senate's position was to transfer it to SGF. And I think I was okay with the Senate's position. I don't know how you guys felt about that.
I'd prefer to stay in the water plan fund, but if we word it this way, I doubt if there's any excesses that will go anywhere.
Yeah.
And at the levels we're talking about, there's going to be $3 request for every $1 that we can possibly fund. So I think those are almost negligible. So
I would ask for the State Water Plan Fund as well, because if we're doing the numbers you're talking about, which we all agree is not enough, I don't think anything should go back to general fund. I think it should all be spent on water.
I would, yeah. I'm thinking in an ideal world, I would agree that if that is the number we land on,
if she
that would
were
also be
queen
my,
for the day.
if I were queen for the day.
And I agree, actually, that it should, I would like, if there is any excess, I would rather see it go to water than just get it reabsorbed. That's what we're here for, is the water.
Still trying to catch up with you here, Mr. Chairman. On the 5 million, wasn't there kind of cap of 15, which we had the same on that? And so are we talking about the 15 that you guys had said 45 and we had said 30?
the prior page on the very bottom.
Okay.
About if there's an excess of so much, it should go to the, I think your position was anything in excess would go to the state general fund, and our position was it should go back to the water fund.
Yeah, it's the same for both, but
Yeah,
we're talking about this one, the water technical assistance.
I guess they're both in the same
Yeah.
category. If there does happen to be any excess in a given year, given conditions, I wish it would stay with the state water plan fund rather than go back to the state general fund. I don't think we're going to be wasting any money here.
I don't think we will.
So, would you guys agree with our position on that one?
Yes, sir.
I think that.
The additional change in the water projects grant fund was to change the balance of the fund, and then to do the same, to change it from State Water Plan Fund to SGF for any excess funds. And I would be in favor of the House's position on both issues.
I guess I would be willing to compromise and go to the $30,000 number, your number, but it stays with the state water plan, is where I would like to see it.
Could I just ask, what was the reasoning for that? Do you remember? Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, we had conservatives on the committee and thought 45 was too high and it went to 30, so.
Yes, sir.
We had concern about going back to water. They're good enough for money. And they don't give it all they can get. I don't think she goes since five. That's why we changed it to the last year. I think we can do it anyway, but I think if you're asking something to be touched.
It could go from one pocket to the other. I understand that, but
I think that was a real reason.
yes. Yeah, I understand, Senator. I don't want to see us be inefficient or not utilizing what we have. And if it's not, it needs to go back to the someplace that it can be used, but I don't think that's going to happen in this case at the low levels we have. And obviously, since they have control of it, that's another reason there probably won't be funds there. I think we're kind of arguing a moot point there. But
I might add a point too, just to say I know the grant fund and technical assistance fund are administered by the water office, but then any funds that go to the state water plan fund are recommended by the Kansas Water Authority. So the water office houses the state water plan fund, but a different entity would make the recommendations for how the money would be spent, just to clarify.
So I guess we would be okay with the 30 million, but going back to state water plan fund, if you would agree.
Mr. Chairman, if we agreed to that, could we go to 35 and we all walk out of here winner tonight?
I appreciate you hoping I get a good night's rest. I would still like to talk about that a little bit, and the stock water deal is another issue we also want to kind of look at a little bit, but I think we can agree to the things that we've done so far, and it just makes sense to me to go back to the water plan and we'll agree to your number of 30 million.
Mr. Chairman, could we just, whether we go SGF or the water, could we do that tomorrow too, since we're meeting anyway? That gives us time to sleep and think about that one too.
Sure, if you guys want to do that. Okay. I think we've covered everything we can, and we'll recess until sometime tomorrow when we can find a room and get together again, and hopefully we can finish this discussion. I want to thank you guys for coming over, and I appreciate it very much. We are adjourned.